Look, I think, may these first two steps in the right direction be the first two of many more. And I think when you really appreciate just how exceptional our, education system, from a higher education, the universities that we have here, the hospitals that we have here, the transportation that we have available here, aesthetically, culturally,
the parks.
It's like, don't even try to convince me that it isn't world class. I think, unfortunately, we have made some really poor choices on who we've asked to steer the ship. And, I think with more conversation and discussion around the focusing on the positives and how we can get back on track, I'm hopeful that we don't, fall any further.
What's the 5 Ps? Do you remember it?
Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
There you go. It doesn't matter how much money we get. If we don't close, it's no money, right? So no close is no money. I'm everything that I am because of my dad's death. And I wouldn't be as successful without his death. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Jason Theory. This is season 3, episode 5, I believe. And we are having our first second returning guest. I had a returning guest before you. Mike Marks, who is in the commercial real estate business, knows a thing or two about Chicago politics, escapes to a house in Michigan, and likes to spend his summers in Greece.
If you have the means, I highly recommend it.
All right, so let's just get into it. The last time we did this podcast was 2 weeks before the mayoral election, and the impossible happened. We elected a CTU lobbyist because that's what Chicago needed. It needed to fortify the strongest union in America that rips through all of our cash. So that's been great. What does the first year seem like to you? I mean, it's basically what we thought it would be. Murders are up. I mean, shots are up 300%. Crime is out of control, and now now we're suing car manufacturers because criminals can't be held liable for committing crimes. It's just too easy to commit a crime, so they should be sued. It's been interesting, to say the least. Your thoughts on the first of it, bud?
Well, that didn't go very well. Yeah, really, heartbreaking in many ways to see the city devolve further from where it was or had been. And I think we, don't remember who the quote is attributable to, but, hope is not a business plan. And I think there was a lot of hope out there that maybe it wasn't going to get worse, or that he was going to perhaps do some things that were to surprise us to the upside. But it's just been a lot of folly and missteps. So.
Now, basically, because of where your background is and what you do, tell us how the retail market has reacted to the last year. I mean, I know it's been hard. I heard from a friend of mine, Mark Czar. Do you know him?
Yeah.
So I was out to drinks with him a little bit ago, and he's like, listen, the like places that have storage, places that do soft, like he was like, there is retail that's doing very well. He's like, like you talked about, the Class B office space and some other stuff and some shopping malls, stuff like that. It's rough there, but he said there was some positives. Let's go over the positives.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot more than just some positives on the retail end.
Let's do that. Let's start with, we'll get into the bad stuff. Let's start with the good stuff.
Lure them in with positivity.
Yeah, positivity.
Okay, great.
Come to Chicago, drop $100 million.
No, I mean, truly, retail is having, I think, a moment. Fundamentals are as strong as they've ever been. There's just record absorption, record rent growth, record sales, record expansion by the retailers.
What do you attribute that to? Because that's something that no one would, like, that is, like when people say to me, I can't believe anyone's buying anything in Chicago residential. I'm like, well, listen, this. Like, yeah. positive news doesn't sell. So break down like why there's positive news.
Sure. I mean, look, I think it's intertwined with some of the negativity around, and that entails, the office sector. But, retail and office seem to have switched roles. There was the retail apocalypse. I think we talked a little bit about it last time,
yes.
and all that led up to kind of the pandemic and this notion that, terrestrial retail as we know it, or kind of the conventional shop space, was dead and gone. And there was a proliferation of bankruptcies leading up to COVID, and then COVID was kind of a knee on the back, if you will, of some of these retailers that were either
it just maybe shortened it shortened the
accelerated
pain.
It for sure,
like ripped the Band-Aid instead of just slowly pulling off these
there
losses.
was no place to hide at that point. And so as a result of where retail had been for a really long time, and it was deeply frustrating to kind of have this e-commerce theory out there that it was going to kind of wipe out the store as we knew it. And what ultimately ended up happening is, as these stores were getting closed and some of the lower performing units within the chain were shuttered, a lot of these retailers watched their e-commerce sales in that region drop precipitously, if not, vaporize entirely. And so I think that getting an opportunity to see the correlation between having a presence, not only for someone's awareness of that brand, but also the ability to return or try something on, made everyone realize they needed both. And I mean, you'd always heard the buzzword omni-channel, but I'm truly like this notion of having the right amount of stores in the right amount of square footage.
And what do you think that?
Mixed with
what do you think that is? Are mega stores out, and you want to be like these small Walmarts or these smaller stores? I mean, is that where things need to be? Have a huge online presence, and then have a place where people can return, try on, or just have eyes on their store.
Yeah, I don't think it's a one size fits all response. I think that for every retailer it's different, and you watch some of these larger boxes get creative, like Kohl's. I mean, I didn't have any real reason to ever go into a Kohl's, and then when they started pulling in the beauty groups, I think it was Ulta or Sephora, started opening stores in Kohl's, and Amazon started doing
the Amazon thing. Is like you go there to drop off an Amazon box,
right.
Like, let's see what else they have in it. That's brilliant.
Well, and it also, I think, underscores the theory that Amazon was changing the paradigm with shoppers and making them think they could buy 10 boxes or 10 sizes of something, figure out what they wanted and return it, and it was all free. That was eroding the margin at at every level for not only the retailers, but it was also very expensive for the logistics groups that were handling it. And so they started inducing or incentivizing people to return things at a Locker or a Kohl's, and I think that lets you know that it is not a sustainable thing. Amazon was willing to lose money and kind of change the behavioral patterns of the consumer in order to get them more comfortable clicking and buying. But at the end of the day, I'm a dinosaur. I like to go into a store. I like to see how it's merchandised and to touch and feel and see what they're doing differently to compel me.
But you're also in that business, right? So when you walk into a store, do you say, do you look at how things are put around and distributed? Okay, this is where the makeup is. This is where the kid stuff is. Do you like?
Yeah, I love
I do
that. I love it in a grocery store. I love it in a department store. I love it in a digitally native brand that came off of the internet, came off of a two-dimensional experience, and opened up a store and did something different. They had a chance to really kind of take a lot of the data that they had. They were doing the inverse of what everyone was doing, which was trying to get the credit card data of where their consumer was coming from. The digitally native guys knew so much about the demos of their consumer before opening a store, and they kind of knew how much inventory they need to carry. They either don't have inventory, excess inventory at the store, and they just fulfill. At Viore, you're like, do you have the size?
I was about to say Viore. It's like,
yeah, and they're like, no, just do it online and buy it direct, and they'll ship it to you. And I'm like, wild that you can't just like grab the medium for me in the back.
I'll never forget when Nikki came home. She was at Southport. She was they opened a Viore store. And I'm like, man, they got to have brick and mortar.
They do. And so as that happened, and then the confluence of retail being in sort of a rough state or perceived difficult moment, no new construction was happening. Because you couldn't, try to convince somebody to give you a loan to build a new shopping center. They're like, we're over retail.
Yeah, build a house in 2010.
Yeah, they're trying to build apartment buildings and senior housing at the malls. Why do you want to build a shopping center? So nothing new was getting built on a scale relative to what we've been experiencing historically. And so that resulted in, you had these new entrants that were recognizing if they came offline, because it was so expensive to acquire consumers through Instagram and Facebook and stuff, that it started to become cheaper to try to gather them organically from the way that it used to be. And they started opening up stores, and that started to absorb some of the vacancy that was out there. Some of the landlords that, had watched their rents creep up, and now they lost that older format to a bankruptcy or to a closure, started to realize they needed to reset their basis or demise the space and create a smaller, more kind of intimate venue. And so then those started to lease up too, and then that started to restore some growth in the rents. And I think that, success begets success, or activity begets activity. And in the retail universe, it's not a super popular thing to say, but it's not indefensible that, like, retailers are lemmings. They see their competitor doing something and they want to do. They're like, look no further than the McDonald's, Burger King, or Walgreens, CVS. It was like Walgreens had a big real estate department, McDonald's had a big real estate department, Burger King just opened up across the street. It was like, and that's not terribly different. You see the co-location of the digitally native guys on Armitage or on Southport. Not all of them figured out they needed to be there. They saw one or two or three trailblazers, and then they're like, oh, that's our spot. That's where we want to be. And so there's no space on Armitage. There's no space on Southport. All that rent has grown and come back beyond where it was pre-COVID.
Interesting. I don't think anyone talks about that.
No, those are the bright spots. The neighborhood, and also too, like, vibrant downtowns in the suburbs. The Napervilles of the world.
You go to the burbs now, it feels like it's a city. Like, they put, like, it's like Armitage Street, right? It's like everything is there.
They have replicated kind of that urban experience in the burbs. Because I think some of it was a function of just people leaving the city during COVID after watching it, sort of attack itself, and then a lot of the folks were working from home, so like, we need better restaurants, and like the groundswell grew. Some of the chefs from the city moved out to the suburbs, and they started being like, I can't believe there's nothing out here for people to eat.
And they
started opening up spots. I mean, you saw Lake Colonial and Lake Forest, and places like that. There's some great spots on the western suburbs, and I think they just leveled up, and then as that happened, and as those store sales picked up, retailers were like starting to pay attention differently to pockets like that, or because a lot of the dual income, whether with or without kids, that live on either side of Southport, if you're working from home and you're walking up and down the street or pushing a stroller or just going to grab coffee, like, that is a captive audience.
Yeah.
So those are bright spots for sure. And I mean, even places like Rush Street or Oak Street, they've been the beneficiary of some of the larger format stores that are on Michigan Avenue leaving to kind of open up something that was in a slightly kind of cooler spot, and that wasn't, didn't have cop cars on every corner with the flashing lights on at night. Like, I don't know about you, but whoever came up with that idea to sort of quell the criminal activity, was like, when I see a police car with its blue lights,
I don't go that way.
I'm not like,
let's go to that.
Looks like it's safe over there. I'm like, what just happened over there?
Yeah.
And they had that on every corner. It's like, if you drove down Michigan Avenue at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, you'd stroke out from all the blue lights that were on every corner. And it's not like those guys were vigilantly sitting in their car looking for trouble. They were like on their phones, just like, blue lights going, sitting at the corner.
I never went down. I would never go down Michigan Avenue at that time. It's crazy.
I made a point of it just because it's my world, and it was heartbreaking. Same thing.
How is Michigan Avenue and State Street? I mean, State Street's tough, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, it's at the mercy of the Loop. It used to be. I would suggest that it was more of where Chicago shopped per se than Michigan Avenue. Michigan Avenue was like a tourist destination.
Yeah, like higher end stuff.
Yeah, and all the hotels that are up and down that stretch, it was it has been a celebrated corridor, and so you'd want to walk the avenue. And State Street was, if you were officing down the Loop and you needed to run an errand and you needed to grab something, you just, most everyone was represented in one way or another. I mean, it wasn't Nordstrom, it was Nordstrom Rack. It wasn't, but there was kind of everyone there, and without the bodies and the footfall that comes to work every day, those stores suffered.
Stores,
immensely.
restaurants, everything. Do you think there'll be? I mean, I've had a couple clients call me up who are in Chicago versus being in California because they can work remote. They have family lives in Chicago, and they don't want to pay California prices, so they live here. 3 people this year called me up and said, "Hey, listen, we're getting a call to work or call to office." There's a word they use, and he
return to office.
Return, yeah, again,
return to work. Whatever.
Yeah, he had like a phrase, and he said, "B said, listen," he goes, "they're bringing us all back, or they're going to let us go." Do you think that could happen in Chicago? Like, are we seeing that, or?
Yeah, I think that we're starting to see it more and more and more. I mean, I think that a lot of these businesses are recognizing that they have this expense, a fixed lease expense that they signed, 5 years ago, and they've got it for another 5 years, and they're like, all right, we can't just continue to burn through this rent expense. We don't have the same kind of connectivity as a work unit, and the collaboration that comes out of being in an office together and the accountability that comes out of it is pretty significant. And I think that I don't live far from downtown, but I don't miss the 30-minute commute when in rush hour. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that commute is real. It's really Monday and Friday that
is dead.
It's dropped off. And I do think that though the mandate of you have to be in the office 3 to 4 days a week, I don't know if we're ever getting back to 5 full days in the office. I don't know. That certainly feels.
We're always on the road, right? We're talking to people, we're meeting people. So your office, I mean, I come in every day, but sometimes I won't. But
you're a unique bird.
Yeah, I also live across the street. How do people sit in their office in their house and not see anybody and just stay there for 8 hours, 9 hours for like 5 days straight?
Well,
that's
a different subset.
I know, but everybody got thrown into that. They can't be good for people.
No, I mean, I think especially for the younger portion of the workforce, they were missing out on just the organic, mentorship that was happening when you'd have senior partners at a law firm or senior brokers at a real estate firm or senior, traders at a investment firm. And I think the amount of knowledge transfer that used to happen in the work environment when everyone's sort of scattered, it doesn't transfer. You don't have those water cooler conversations. You don't have the ability to pop into a senior member's office and ask them a quick question. Yeah, you can pick up the phone or you get them on a Zoom, but it's just different. Same. And I think and especially if you're young and you're trying and you're ambitious and you're trying to kind of make something, and they're like, work from home, and you have a roommate or and you got like 2 other people on their computers or on the Zoom all day, and you live in a smaller apartment. That's tough sledding, I think. And so it's very different if you had kids and all of a sudden, like, you got to know them, you developed a relationship with them that you didn't have because you got to eat breakfast or lunch and dinner with them or go play in the park for an hour and come back. I think a lot of people that got that experience and bonded differently with their partner or with their, offspring, it was like, I don't miss, the office. And I think a lot of it
but if you go into the office and everyone else is staying home, the odds of you climbing the ladder have got to be like 3x.
Yeah. I think Sam Zell said it, before.
I mean, that's what I would do. If everyone else is home, I'm going in.
This is all gonna, end the moment that the guy who thinks he, is doing a pitch via Zoom and somebody else jumped on a plane and went and met with the client face to face, and you lose it. He's like, you'll figure out pretty quickly that, the playing field is not level.
No,
virtually.
It can't be.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree. I think that there's no way that this goes on in perpetuity, but I do think there's a structural or kind of systemic shift in the way that people want to work or want to spend their day and time. And I also think it begs the question for a lot of these businesses, like, what can we be doing to create a more compelling value proposition within our 4 walls? What rituals can we start
it's pushing them to.
Yeah, I think it demands that they get more creative too. Inspire me to be there, whether it's in the quality of space, in the caliber of experience that happens there. Everyone's a little more discerning. They got to design their own day during COVID and figure out whether it was working out. They didn't like to work out at 6 a.m., but they had to because they had to be at the office by 9. Now they could kind of do their little morning program, do a few emails, and then work out at 10 and jump back into something. And it was like, that was much more conducive to whatever their lifestyle was.
When I before COVID, and I went and visited clients that were at LinkedIn, and I walked in there, they had coffee bars, they had like rooms you could hang out, they had pool rooms, they had like, you could play pool, you could take a break, they had all you can eat at all times, and it was all free. And I was like, man, this is amazing. I wouldn't want to be home. I want to be here.
Right. Well, the amenity.
I can go eat at any time. For me, I would fucking love that.
The amenity creep that you guys probably witnessed firsthand in residential, where every tower that went up had they were trying to kind of offer something else beyond what the last new.
They were imitating the rental buildings. I guess the rental buildings who came in, like, you don't have to leave.
Right.
Then they're like, all right, let's just self-contained space.
It's like give them everything.
Yeah, my clients at One Chicago, it's like, dude, I don't take the elevator down to Whole Foods. I go up. They have a dog park that's heated. He's like, I got the gym. I take the private elevator into the gym. He's like, I think the gym's like 100,000 square feet. He's like, I never have to leave.
Right.
They have mini offices. Like it's not WeWorks, but they have like that concept there. They have boardrooms there, so if you want to bring everybody there.
I mean, in the race for talent, these firms are looking at the office buildings and sort of saying, if we're competing for, America's or the world's best and brightest, we have to be able to offer them a space that, inspires them to be like, oh, this is, if I do have to go to the office every day, this is where I want to come.
Yeah.
And if you're competing for that talent and you're in a Class B or in an underwhelming building or something that's a little old and outdated and doesn't offer that, unless you're giving them something differently in a financial package, like if it's all things are equal, they're not going to sort of
So the new buildings that we're seeing in Fulton Market and all these new buildings that are gorgeous on Wacker and all this stuff, they're not having issues. They're doing okay.
Yeah, I think that there is it is a tale of two cities or two worlds. I mean, the Class A product is I think pretty well occupied and pretty well leased, and that's the I think something that we don't talk enough about in Chicago is that it hasn't had the same kind of migration that South Florida has had, or the same international appeal that New York has had, where when the big shiny office building opens and the best and brightest firms move there, like someone ultimately backfills the less desirable space that they left.
Yeah.
In Chicago, it's like a zero sum game. Like the offices, buildings in the Loop are suffering as a direct result of the sexy new buildings that have gone up in Fulton Market. It's not like there's somebody that's willing to pay a certain price for that. You're reading about
what do we do with
South
those?
Street
What do we do with that space? You can't convert it to residential.
Well, I mean, I think that there was just
that's like I went to a thing that the Crown was at, the Sun, and he goes, you can't even. It's not even worth it to tear it down.
Yeah.
It's like, if you gave us the building for free, we would still lose money.
Yeah. Well, because the tax, I mean, that's another thing. I don't know if we're going to get into.
But
property taxes is.
I mean, how does the commercial tax double or triple during COVID when no one's there?
Yeah, it's a broken system. That's how. I mean, you just, and I think this last election with, it was pretty clear where and how the assessor is trying to change the way in which.
But they're not going on value. Let me tell you a story.
Okay.
I have a building that I bought in 22, and that was the assessment year, right? I bought it before the assessor came there. So they've got the closing, the building had been on the market for 3 years, so there's like incredible history. They started at a ridiculous price. By the time that I bought it, it was listed at 1.3, and I think I picked it up at 1.15 in Old Town. So I have a closing, I have history, I have everything. In 2023, I got the 22 reassessment at $2 million. They have a closing, they have an appraisal, They have history that it couldn't even sell at 1.5 for a year and a half. I sent them all of this in front of a judge, and their comment was to me, since I was a real estate agent, it didn't matter. They just try to find anything, to battle it. Now I'm suing the city, and I had to take it to the state. But I mean, like, that building went from making money to basically like scratching or a little bit, and I don't understand how they think that people are going to survive. Like, think if I was just a homeowner.
Well, that was the intent when this current assessor got in office, was to shift the burden from the residential owners to the commercial property owners. And and in the defense of the process, they're not supposed to chase the sale. It's supposed to be based on a collection of like kind or similar assets within.
Yeah, but if it's been on the market for 3 years,
no, I mean,
at $800,000, what you value it, that's the value.
Yeah, it's a broken system. So then you have to hire somebody to appeal it, and then
where's Madigan? Is his firm still rocking? That's what I need to hire.
I don't know if you'd want to hire him today.
Is he in jail yet?
I don't know.
How many indictments does that guy have?
It's the system is broken. There's no place that's more complicated between the equalizers and the levy and the
They just changed that equalizer to make you feel like you've done stuff. Like, my value went down, but the multiplier went up.
Yeah, I mean,
so my house is worth $50,000 less, but my taxes went up twice.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I feel like we touched on it a little bit in the last one, but we were talking about the loop. You have 100 million square feet, 75, I don't know, some pretty staggering number. And I think we can all agree that there's also a staggering number of space that is no longer occupied. So when you don't have those ones, whether it's the restaurant that closed or the store that closed because the loop was empty, or the 6 different firms that
and
downsized.
they go in there and say we're empty now, right? So they get an empty assessment.
Yeah, but you can do a vacancy appeal, but again, where and how you get assessed prior to that appeal, I mean, you can file some, I think, notice around where and how your occupancy changed, but I don't think a lot of those owners saw a direct or an immediate kind of correlation between their assessed value and their tax bills and what their occupancy or NOI had become as a result of some of these, departures. And it was like, now enter the game where you go and you fight it, and then you go to, the various
Why
levels
can't we just BK the city?
Well,
like Detroit did.
I think that
and just break. I mean, I know he's not going to because he's a CTU stooge. But why can't we just say, when we get our tax bill, when everybody gets their tax bill, you flip it around, there's those numbers. The shortfalls are insane. Like, we're just paying interest. I mean, it's the same thing with the government. We only pay the interest on $1 trillion of interest a month. We're only paying the interest. We're not paying any of the actual debt down in the city of Chicago or the government, and I'm sure California and New York are the same. But how can this, I mean, this guy is out of control, but I just go back to the point when the CTU had their second strike going into the start of the year, and we held firm for 10 days, and then Lori just rolled over. If we don't get a fucking handle on the CTU and what it's doing to our money, we're like, I just don't understand. I don't know how it works.
I mean, the
shortfall's insane. Do you ever turn around and look at your tax bill and like, this is where your money's going?
No, I try not to. I
dude,
my tax bill and I look away.
It's all schools. It's all the CTU.
Well, and
we have like one of the worst school systems.
Yeah, I was going to say,
our
test scores have been going up ever since it's a disaster. And I think that's whether it's an inevitability or it's certainly plausible. I mean, they keep doing what they're doing.
They have to. Yeah, you cannot pay off the debt.
And you can't tax your way out of a problem or into
because everyone's leaving like they're now.
Right. And so you lose your high caliber citizenship because of whether it's crime or the cost. And now what do you do to the balance of people that decided to stick around and fight it out, or because they love Chicago, or they have some, inexplicable or inextricable, connection to it? Oh, tax them for staying here. And so like the burden and it becomes punitive to stick around instead of prosperous. And the way you do that is you attract businesses who have jobs and growth, and you get more corporate citizens, and you raise the tide for the boats. You don't keep putting more sand on the sinking ship and taxing people, whether it was the transfer tax or the congestion tax.
Let's talk about the transfer tax. Everyone thinks a transfer tax was a tax for the millionaires. Let me tell you something. That transfer tax only affects 1.8% of all the residential stuff that would happen. It was a flat out attack on retail and large multi-unit owners and large multi-space. I mean, how do they're just going to pass on to the renter? I don't understand, and then you look at, he wouldn't broadcast. And somebody commented yesterday on Instagram, and I commented, I got a ton of likes. They're like, oh, it got voted down by the rich, this and this. I'm like, no, it got voted down because there was no plan. The plan got leaked of who was getting the money. Why are teachers getting housing off of a homeless plan? I mean, everything is so corrupt.
Yeah, I know, and I don't, we certainly aren't going to solve it in the Jason theory, but I think in talking about the fact that it was a half-baked idea that I think people sniffed out or saw through and recognized that
had nothing to do with rich or poor. It had to do with, hey, this is not right.
No, and the fact that no one in this administration, or at least with a voice in the city, was saying, look no further than the case study that took place in Los Angeles. They tried this. They raised 1/8 of what, or 1/10.
150 million out of 980 million.
And
it was a complete fail.
Crushed the velocity of the market. And then now there's a referendum, I think, to change the Constitution to then repeal it and not allow something like that to happen again. So it's killing the market again because people don't want to.
They had a visual of it that didn't work. I mean,
exactly.
There's hard
look no further
data.
than this. Oh, they tried it. It didn't work. Okay, let's not mess with that because we don't need to monkey up the program. We already kind of see the evidence of how this went in another place that's a disaster, and they tried to pull it off anyway, and now they're going to change it in California, and nobody's buying anything because no one wants to have to file a refund to get their money back if it gets repealed.
In 10 years.
So people aren't buying things again. Things aren't selling at the same clip that they had prior to the increase, and and he's still stuck on it. He's like,
California's here in stupidity. Okay, so they're here. This is like ultimate stupidity. California's probably just a tad underneath that. And we're here, and we're just literally doing everything that state does. I think we're like, listen, we can be worse. They're upset that they're not as stupid as the West Coast.
I think there was an encouraging sign out of San Francisco where
I heard they're starting to change things.
Yeah, I think they recognize that they're like, whatever we've been doing
is wrong.
Isn't working.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if did you ever watch Billions?
No, because it got really weird when they're urinating on each other, and I was like, on the first episode, I'm like, I'm not into this.
There's a scene where Wendy, the performance coach for Axe and married to Paul Giamatti's character, was like, everything was sort of crumbling for him, and she was like, 180. And he was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, she's like, whatever you're doing isn't working. Just try the opposite.
Dude, George Costanza had his best run when he did the 180. George Costanza, he literally ordered the opposite of what he always eat every day, and the girl was eating the same food. She worked for the Yankees. He wouldn't sleep with her, even though he wanted to on the first date. She fell in love with him. He got a job at the Yankees, literally. And he said, this opposite's no longer I don't know what he says, but this is now my religion. He's like, everything I've done in my life led me to this point, which has been wrong. That's in the 90s. We didn't even need that show. Everything in life can be fixed with Seinfeld. Literally, everything in life can be fixed with Seinfeld, and just opposite day.
This is a notable Jason theory.
No, I'm telling you, it can. I've been saying that since the '90s. Everything in life can be fixed with Seinfeld.
Well, we're more attracted to a familiar hell than an unfamiliar.
Yeah. All right. So, and then in terms of, so that's retail, which is doing better. And then I also think, let's stick on the thing. I also think that the voting down of the bring them home. First off, who are we bringing home? I never understood. There's aliens coming down. What's bring them home? It should have been like, give me your money. Give me your money, Bill. It's just like the naming of these, all the names that politicians use on both sides, they're fantastic. They're like, they must do tests, right? Like, they're like.
Oh, I doubt they do any tests.
You don't think so? Because I'd bring like 10 people and say, do you like bring them home or steal your money? And they're like, do you bring your home? It's probably going to work better. So that gets voted down. And then Eileen Burke gets voted in versus Fox's, person that she's on. I think those are both positives. And they tried to steal the election. They found those 10,000 votes a week after the election. I was like, oh my God, did they find them from the river or something? I was listening to on Chicago cheating on elections and election fraud, which is just rampant. But I was listening to JFK, Bobby Kennedy Jr., and they were talking about the Kennedy election. And they, like, years later, they pulled out, like, thousands and thousands and thousands of votes from Lake Michigan they found in bags that were all for Nixon.
Really?
Oh, he was just on a podcast with Schultz. It was awesome. It's honestly one of the best things. I'm a podcast freak. I mean, that's kind of why I do it. That's all I have to do in the car. Schultz and Bobby Kennedy. I'm telling you right now, find that. And he goes into how his uncle and his dad were murdered. He goes into everything that happened. He goes into how CIA was messing around, not only with LSD, but the CIA was also messing around with hypnosis for people to go kill people. It's crazy, man. If that guy gets close to being elected, he will get killed. And Schultz asked him. He's like, do you fear your life? He's like, this is something I got to do. He's like, they've killed everybody in your family. He's like, yeah. He's like, but it is what it is. And they won't give him Secret Service protection. It's the only person at his level that Biden will not give it to him. It's the only person.
That's curious.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, but man, he wants to rock the boat, which I like.
Yeah. You're a boat rocker.
He wants to rock the boat, man. He wants to get rid of the CIA, FBI, like he wants the Department of Education. He's kind of on the same breaking down the system, like kind of like Vivek is, right? Like he's like, listen, this is, but they're like, this is what these people do. It's really good.
Check it out.
And then an ex-CIA guy was the next one on Schultz, and he was bringing up the stuff on the Kennedys. Really cool. All right, let's get back to Chicago and enough of the Kennedys and Chicago stealing elections. Anyways, I think those two things kind of show, like you were talking about Frisco, I think that shows a little bit of movement.
It absolutely does. The two steps in the right direction as far as I'm concerned, and a long time in the making. I mean,
we hired somebody that wants to put people that shoot people behind bars. This is, I never thought I'd have to be voting on that, but that's kind of great.
And lowering the retail theft threshold back to what it had been. Because
what is it? What is it? Is it still 1,000 or did they? I know they tried. I think they moved it to 1,500 in California in some places.
I think here it's 1,000, and it used to be like 300. But effectively, what happened, at least at the manager level, a lot of the retailers and folks that I've talked to were like, the store ops were like, if you see somebody shoplifting or stealing, like it's not worth your life. They're not going to go to jail, and so it emboldened a whole group of organized criminality to kind of just go in and take what they want and leave. And at a certain point, that shrinkage or theft starts to become cost prohibitive.
Seinfeld shrinkage.
Yeah, different shrinkage. But and it just it's an unsafe environment to work in where you're just like, is this person in here? Then you don't want to be kind of doing things that...
I don't want to be there as a worker if I feel like I'm unsafe.
Right.
Well, that's why Walgreens closed. We had the flagship Walgreens here in Bucktown. And the Sophia was getting, at the pharmacy, And 4 guys walked in, grabbed, I'll never forget, Sophia called me up and told me, grabbed cases of beer and bunch of liquor and everything, and just walked out.
Yeah.
And Sophia looked at the cop that was there, or whatever, security. She's like, what are you going to do? He's like, they come in every Thursday, they'd get all their liquor and they leave. He's like, I'm not going to get into a gunfight with people that are stealing liquor I'm going to get in trouble for even like trying to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, a year later, that beautiful Walgreens is closed.
Sad state of affairs.
Yeah, it's going to be a bookstore now.
Well, they probably
I don't think they're going to go there. That's what I said. That place is going to thrive.
I missed Barnes & Noble. I was excited to see that announcement that they were.
Yeah.
But that's a problem. The theft piece of it, and I think what Eileen has wanted to do, restore some order, and to the police have to know that the system is designed to support them. They're risking their lives every day, and why would you if the person that you arrest isn't going to be prosecuted? And so it's hard to blame them, and at the same time, it's not hard to figure out how we got here. As sad and as frustrating it is, so to listen to her and to hear about how, there's a lot of simpatico kind of commentary that she grew up here and she can't bear to see it devolve any further. And I think the other thing that she mentioned, leaving the bench to go and do this, and some of her peers that are on the bench are also leaving early to help her do this, is to restore the state's attorney's office to a place where people like young, bright minds want to work and they want to learn and they want to be part of kind of a not only a tutorial and a education, but an experience that builds an unbelievably impressive track record and resume. And we lost that. Nobody wants to work at the state's attorney's office because it was.
Does anybody want to work something wherever you doesn't matter?
Yeah.
That's what that'll eat at your core.
Right.
Think about showing a retail space for 10 years to 1,000 people a year and no one wants it. That's what it's like. You're like, there's nothing here that I can do. When I talk to the beat cops in Bucktown, because they're always walking around, there's one that's the one female one. She's got kids and stuff like that, and she's like, I grew up here. She's like, I don't know what to do anymore. Yeah. When Sophia got robbed, it was the same beat cop, and when I went over there and was talking to her, she was like apologetic, and I'm like, you don't have to be apologetic. You can't do your job. She goes, I know exactly who the kids are. They just got released. And she goes, and they just come back, and there's nothing we can do about it.
It is brazen. They're emboldened by the fact that they don't know anybody that's actually gone away for doing what they did. They're out the next day. They taunt the judges and they taunt, the officers, like, what are you, I'm going to be out tomorrow.
And it's so organized. I will tell you, when Sophia got robbed, I was impressed talking to the police and how it all works, right? The home station is out of state, so it's federal. They know how to get, they know if they steal, like the reason why there's so many stolen cars is that if they're in a stolen car, even if you know who the person is, they can't attribute the crime to them because it's not registered to them, right? So all the cars they drive are all registered to girlfriends or boyfriends, people that don't commit the crimes, right? That don't have records. It's so perfectly, like they know the laws and it's perfectly executed. These are not fly-by-night crimes. Mm-hmm. They're, and then everything, all the goods go into a home base. That home base is out of the state. You think the feds want to deal with your stolen computer and some shoes? We got better things to do. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting how it's done. Like very, very organized.
When you give anyone enough time to get organized, ultimately they do. And I think we've given them ample time to figure out the cracks and the holes and the corners to cut. So it's not mystifying that somebody eventually was like, well, wait a minute. At no point did anyone in any prior in Lori's administration or the present one decide that something needed to change. All they kept doing was rolling heads at the top of the police union, and it was like, where are we going with this? These guys continue to get smarter, more efficient.
Yeah, dude, it's organized. I don't know if there's I don't know if there's different laws for organized crime, but this is not.
Organized retail theft is a very real thing. I mean, you don't.
12 people don't walk into Louis Vuitton and start snatching stuff and have cars
When do you
everywhere.
remember the amount ever of a car driving through the front door of a store? It's like, weekly. It had become a weekly occurrence.
Smart.
And they would use a stolen car. They would crush the storefront, run in, take whatever they wanted, and have another kind of stolen vehicle waiting.
Yeah, you want to get rid of carjackings, change that law. That's literally, they changed it. That's when carjackings went bananas.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also, the car manufacturer's fault for making them
Too easy to grasp.
It's a joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
In California, I was listening to something yesterday. They literally preach, please just leave your keys on the seat of your car. So if someone wants to steal it, no one's going to get hurt or this or that.
Who comes up with these ideas?
I don't know, but in Frisco, no one locks their doors. No one locks their doors. They keep their trunk. When they park, the windows are down, the doors aren't locked, and the trunk's open. They don't want your car, they want the goods. No one locks their car. So you don't have to, so your windshield doesn't get broken.
Oh my gosh. That's a sad state of affairs. I had not heard that.
Yeah, dude. Oh my Lord. All right, so what about Resi? Did you see that sale that just happened? JP Morgan, they had that place on Lakeshore, 850 Lakeshore. They paid $140 for it, and they took a loss and sold for $80 million.
I did read about it.
I would just think Resi at that. I mean, is that all from the taxes? Because I would think Resi's doing great with the rents.
It's a good question. I don't know, and maybe
that building's a prison. It's an awful building.
Okay.
It's awful.
I've not been in it, but
Each room has a window this big, right? So you can kind of not see out or something. It's a terrible building.
Well,
It just caught my eye that a rental building would be doing bad.
Well, look, I think for all the reasons we talked earlier, if you are at the bottom end of the continuum, as far as
This building's a dump.
yeah, if it's the least desirable option, where do you cut rents to? Because everyone has been sort of taught, look for whatever amenity or whatever kind of option it's coming with, and the more new product that has gone up because of how strong the residential market had been, then it makes the old ones look even worse. And so, are you cutting your rents to appeal to who? And they probably bought it at a very different, pro forma thesis
Rate,
than,
yeah.
and whether they had a floating rate loan or not. I mean, that's a big story within the commercial world too, is that a lot of these big purchases, they didn't lock rate. And
Are we going to have a great reset?
I mean, it feels like we're having it. I think it seems a little bit more orderly, but
Because we still got some time, right? So if everyone refinanced even 2 years ago, you're still below 4. It's been the last 2 years we've gone from 4 to the 8s and 9s.
well, the bigger thing, at least from the world and the seat, the world as I was seeing it and the seat I was sitting in last year, to have rates run the way they did, it was unprecedented. And I mean, I think it was I had read in 40 years we had one.
Yeah, we went through that. Yeah,
and so when you were in the middle of a transaction, or if you had just closed on it and you were trying to secure debt, it was moving on you every 30 to 45 days. And I think if you told anybody where it was going to end at the end of the year, they probably would have just taken the pain, taken on the chin, and been like, all right, let's just
people are like, let's wait for a dip. Let's wait for a dip.
And it never did. And so then all of a sudden, if you had a sizable asset with a significant debt instrument on it, and you weren't able to secure whatever financing you were out trying to find because you had a looming maturity, and you settled for, a floating option, there are more deals that I've heard about that are upside down as a result of that, as a result of them not locking rate because they were in the market to refinance or to finance last year and they couldn't. And because nobody knew where it was going to end up, everyone was sort of willing to ride it out, and that was the wrong bet.
When they started rising on me is when it started rising, I was buying that building and the 3 little buildings behind, and then I just remember it was 3.5, 4, and I was on the phone with John from Drevis.
Oh,
And I was like, man, there's got to be a dip. It was like 4.25. And I called him up. I go, there's gonna be no fucking dip. Just let me.
Yeah.
And it was during the deal. So I underwrit the deal at like 2.5, and we ended the deal at 4.25.
Yeah. I mean, a good chunk
Double
of what transactions I was working on did not make last year as a result of that. Got it marketed, got it sold, under contract, and then they're working through their debt, and all of a sudden they come back with a retrade to say, hey, when we priced it, the 10-year was here, it's now here, and the spread's even wider. So, can we get a price reduction? And the sellers were like, no, that's not,
But then what do the sellers do?
Well, I think some of them regret not giving it to them. Yeah. But, hindsight, they all feel like they would have done something different with the benefit of hindsight. But at the time, they were obstinate. They were, frustrated.
You got to fill it and get on to the next part of your life. Because you don't know. Listen, if you lose out on money, you're like, damn it. But when you get destroyed, you know what I'm saying? Like the risk reward is so, even in housing, the risk reward is always to get the deal done. Because time is a killer.
Right.
No one ever waits and makes more money. You wait. I mean, you do, but it's rare. You mostly wait because things are going against you and you lose.
Well, I think that therein lies a
me.
big difference between commercial and residential. I think a huge component of the residential experience or transaction is emotionally driven. And on the commercial side, it's financially underwritten. And so it's like, if the deal doesn't work or no longer, has the return that you require as an institutional investor or as
an investor, I get it, but as a seller, man, get out.
But I think that some of them, if you have a lease that's expiring and you think you have below market rent, or that was the attractive piece of the story, the narrative you're telling the market, and they're sitting there going, all right, well, I wasn't going to ride out that lease and try to re-tenant the space and get a higher rent, but you know what? Screw it. If they're not going to buy it at the price we agreed on, I'll do that. And then what they don't realize is that, if debt
but
keeps
there's
rising,
costs in that too.
But I think they oversimplified it in their mind's eye, or didn't account for the massive sort of resetting that was going to occur, that, you're not going to outkick the coverage of the entire market just because your one asset might have some lift in rent. And
I've always found that interesting. Like when I'm driving, like for instance, we've been in this space for a year now, and we were over by Goddess and the Grocer, where you went.
Familiar with that.
So our rent was pretty high, and we're like, listen, we can't roll with this rent anymore. And what I don't understand is it's been empty for a year, where we've been here for a year. If he would have just lowered the rent, we just would have stayed, and he would have had. I'm trying to understand why. This is the last thing I'll ask you. I'm trying to understand why people leave retail spaces empty for so long versus like filling them so at least money's coming in. And I don't know if there's got to be a reason for it, because why is Damon half empty? Like lower your price and fill it at least.
Well, and I think in some cases it's they can't, right? Like they either have a basis that requires them to generate, I think there's a hope being a business plan in those cases where someone's like, look, I know that this deal down the street got done at $60 a foot and these guys are paying 35. I should be able to get 45 or 50. They're asking me to go to 25. Nah, I don't think I want to do that. Or at 25, maybe he starts losing money, so he thinks that maybe the market's better than it is. A lot of times, going back to the same comment, the benefit of hindsight is, a game changer. So,
but I don't even think it's hindsight. You own rental buildings.
I think if he knew a year
you own
from
rental
now,
buildings and I own rental buildings. Okay, would you rather have your place? Would you rather take $100 less, or not take a rent increase or whatever it is, and have it open open for 3 months or 4 months, or have, hey, listen, I've got somebody in there, the money's continue to come in? Well,
but along those lines, I would rather have it occupied and income generating than vacant and sort of, a big chest with no money in my pocket saying, oh, I think I can get.
And you're still cutting checks.
Right. So
there's still some
But
costs.
I think that you don't end up in real estate cycles because people think that way. people don't think that way. They tend to fall into the theory that trees grow to the sky. If I'm getting $3,000 a month, I'm going to get $3,500 next year when the lease is up. They want to believe, they hope that, real estate appreciates. They hope that they're going to get more rent next year than they're getting now. And when you're in the middle of the forest, you kind of have no idea what the rest of the trees really look like. So until you zoom out and go, I don't know if this is, there's more supply or there's less demand or whatever it is that will function the way economics function, you would make a different decision, I think, if you had all the data. But instead, if you're like, my rent should go up, it always goes up. Real estate always goes up. No, it doesn't.
I think we have the benefit of owning real estate and also seeing all of the mistakes that people make and being like, I just don't want that mistake.
Yeah, a lot of it is the allure that you don't get a cycle, you don't get a reset if things always went up, or if people acted and behaved in a manner that recognized that this stuff is cyclical. So if I just don't get so greedy and try to push these rents here or over lever myself, then I will be fine. But it's not, that conservative mindset or that orientation is not, I think, the preponderance of ownership out there. It's, they either got into real estate because they heard it's a place to create wealth, and then they think it's just going to keep going up, and then they end up making a couple of good bets. It's no different than going to Vegas and winning the first time. Like if you bought a house and flipped it, or you bought a house and rented it and it made money, and next thing you know, you've got 6 rentals, like good luck getting lucky on all of those. Like I
just want my debt service paid. I don't care about anything else.
You have a more seasoned and cynical take on things, as you've seen the dark side.
The dark side, yeah. So any closing remarks on Chicago? It's a beautiful, I drive down Lakeshore Drive. I'm like, what an amazing city.
It is.
And it's snowing in April. It's beautiful.
Look, I think, may these first 2 steps in the right direction be the first 2 of many more. And I think when you really appreciate just how exceptional our education system, from a higher education, the universities that we have here, the hospitals that we have here, the transportation that we have available here, aesthetically, culturally,
the parks.
It's like, don't even try to convince me that it isn't world class. I think, unfortunately, we have made some really poor choices on who we've asked to steer the ship. And, I think with more conversation and discussion around the focusing on the positives and how we can get back on track, I'm hopeful that we don't, fall any further into.
Any early thoughts on the next mayor? Because this guy's approval rating is the only approval rating that's lower than Biden's.
I actually. Well, I'm not going to share names, but I do think I'm optimistic that it's going to be an exceptional.
You think Janulius is going to
run? No, but I think it's going to be exceptional. I think that when you're at the, what's the line from Batman? It's always darkest before the dawn. I think that the amount of people that have sort of faced this fire and looked at it and gone, oh, this is not good. Like, that's when you pull the really capable people off the sidelines.
Like when Epstein came to the Cubs. Like, I think we're at that moment where someone's like, no, I can fix this city.
The candidates that we've had have been a function of just like a general malaise where there's like...
And we got to get people to vote.
Yeah. I don't even know if people realized how close it was that, in the state's attorney's race. And
1,400.
Yeah.
After they found 10,000 votes.
Bananas, by the way. Like, that delta is insane. And I just think that if you get to a point where people have become so frustrated and so, they're finally gonna be like, you know what, if I don't do something, like, I can't really bitch about what's happening. Like,
it was really interesting you're saying that, because I had a young person that I asked who was 24 and she didn't vote, and she's like, I should have. She goes, but she goes, they don't talk about any issues. It's just mudslinging. She goes, I don't know, like, what is going on or this or this. And then I just said, listen, just always vote against the incumbent. It's whatever you do. If you don't like how things are, just vote against the person that's in office.
Yeah. No, it's
That's the least you could do. Just be like,
I mean, I'm hopeful. I know that we have some younger folks that work for us, and they're pretty disillusioned. And they voted for him, and now they're like, "Well, I see your point now. I'm kind of, they were one issue voters. They were riding the train to work, and they felt like the trains were unsafe, and they were overly crowded, and they were unreliable. And I think Brandon spoke about it. Paul really didn't." And they became one issue voters and wanted to take
a one issue vote on the train.
Yes, and
that's literally okay. We're getting closer to California on that.
Despite trying to explain to them, if they don't have a job to go to because
no
nobody
train,
wants to
matter.
invest in the city, you don't need to worry about riding the train. And now, again, with the benefit of hindsight, they're like, "Oh, I kind of see what you meant." And I think it perhaps is making them a little bit more engaged and a little bit more interested in trying to figure out. But they are disillusioned with the system because they're like, don't think it works, and they don't think it matters. And
it does.
It does. Absolutely.
It does.
Get out and vote.
Yeah. All right, bud. Thanks so much. I think we kept it positive.
We did.
And we're still below California.
I'm just wondering, you're using your sister as this.
Well, listen. So this is California, top of my head. And
I was gonna say.
And here's Chicago. It's close. All right. Thank you so much. I would give out Mike's information, but he doesn't want to talk to any of you. So, before we close, what's going on with the dating scene in Chicago?
Oh my goodness, nothing.
Nothing? Is there a scene still, like party scene, like it was when we were younger, or no?
I mean, I think there's a party scene. That's not where I that's not where I expect to meet.
Mrs. Marks.
Yeah.
All right. So that may mean he's available. You can DM me if you want his phone number. I'll give it to you. All right, thanks so much. The Jason Theory. This will be out actually first week in May, and hopefully by then, God knows, the city's still standing. But thanks so much. Subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
We're out.